Welcome to the We Are Self-Made podcast. This is not your traditional show on entrepreneurship with quitty quotes about failing fast and often, but an honest look at the good, bad, and ugly. Today, I'm gonna speak to Callum. He just told me he's a little hangover, so let's see how we can push him up and taking part in this experiment. Thanks for coming back on the show, Callum.
You're welcome, man. How you doing?
Good. Why are you a hangover?
Because I had lots of sambuca last night, and
Oh,
I underestimated. It was like soda, and I underestimated the amount.
fair enough. And it's 8:30 in the morning, just for the listeners to know that you are still getting up and show up to work every day.
That's commitment, baby.
That's commitment.
Do what
Did
you
you
say you're gonna do.
exactly? Did you have anything to celebrate, or was this just like a friend leaving? What was the purpose of you going out?
Yeah, it was like my last night in Chiang Mai, essentially.
Oh,
Yeah, with friends, and it was just like we just went to a bar, and we didn't really plan anything. It wasn't like a official thing or anything. We just a few of us went to a bar, and we didn't really, like I said, we didn't plan anything, and then I ended up having too many shots just
fair enough.
because we had this bottle, and me and Sebastian had bought it, and we thought we were so cool because it had our names on it, and it was behind the bar. And we were doing lots of shots of that, and because it was free as well, we weren't thinking anything of it. And then before you know it, I was
Smashed.
so drunk. So
Oh,
not in a fun way either. It was not nice. Yeah, learned my lesson though.
yeah. So as you know, we're gonna check in on your progress over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So now that you said you're leaving Chiang Mai, so
Mm,
first we're gonna talk about your progress. Then we look ahead, what's coming up next, and share lessons learned along the way. Not just as a third item, but I realized that it's much easier to share those lessons as we go along, right?
okay.
Um, can you share like three things, big or little, what happened last month that you consider a win, where you're proud about yourself, where you stepped forward into becoming a better human being, a better
Mm,
entrepreneur?
yeah, yeah. I would say the biggest one would be accessing more presence in my life, and realizing that when I realizing that like it's easy to get lost, I think, in the noise of your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And when I, for example, go to this herbal sauna, which was my, you know what that is, you've been there. Um, when I was driving my bike on the way back, it was weird. It's like, you know what it's like. It's sometimes a little dangerous driving in Thailand at night. And I was driving on the way back, and my brain every so often, was like negative thought, negative thought. Like on the way back, it was like, like that car looks dangerous. That car looks dangerous.
Mm.
But like immediately after I had that thought, it was followed up by a positive thought, which was like, "Don't worry, you're a good driver. I'm sorry, I'm sure you can handle it." You
Yeah,
know.
nice.
And then it was like, "Oh my God, it's fucking freezing." And it was like, "Don't worry, you're gonna be home soon. No problem." You know. And I've started to kind of channel into that voice more and more as I've got present, started to meditate more effectively and stuff like
Is this
that.
a conscious effort you do? Like with every negative thought, you replace it with a positive one, or does it just come up as a
When I
like
get present, it comes up,
it comes
yeah.
up? Okay.
But I'm trying to consciously put it into my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How
So
do you get presence? What are like a few things you do? Like you said, like body temperature as you change, and you
yeah,
talked about it before, like either heat or cold helps you. What else? You just mentioned meditation.
yeah. So meditation is effective for me to just to be still, be quiet. Take some time for myself. But there's nothing for me like physiology. Like when I change my physiology, boom, I get
Yeah,
an immediate change in my state. Yeah,
yeah. And I know that you journal too. So about your
yeah,
goals,
yeah,
you constantly reassure your commitments to your goals and what you want to
yeah,
achieve, and you
yeah.
just journal what's top of your mind, right?
Exactly, exactly. I try and journal, and I write about things. with no. I'm basically writing a letter to myself, knowing that no one else is going to see it. So I do not edit it in any way. I just write exactly the thoughts that are in my head.
So why don't you share it right now? No, just kidding.
You can dream. You can dream.
Okay. Um, I know that you also read a lot of books, so I think that's another way for you to get out of your head and get into another almost virtual mentor, right? And
True.
tap into their wisdom. Um, what are like two other wins that you can share, like accessing more presence? What else are you proud of last month?
Yeah. Another one would be in terms of my own personal growth again would be I read an incredible book called Nonviolent Communication, and I've skimmed it before, but never really sat with it because it's quite a dense, heavy, long book.
Yeah.
And I've had more time this time in Chiang Mai, so I've been going to the pool more often and just sitting and reading that book. And it's just been a game changer in terms of how I want to communicate with people and how I want to live my life. I would say, I would say that is it. That's been a really, really important.
What's one practice you would like to share that you already experimented with based on the book? And can you share an outcome where you were surprised, wow, this really works?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. So the first one for me that was huge was what others do may be the stimulus of our feelings, but it's not the cause, right? Meaning like whenever someone makes us feel like, sorry, even listen to my words, listen to the vocabulary I'm using. This is how we were brought up. It's like whenever someone else makes us feel angry or sad or unhappy, right? That's not true. It's like they don't make us feel anything. We make ourselves feel that way, right? Other people just maybe a stimulus to it, but we have to manage our own responses all the time, and that's one of the hardest things in life, I think, is to constantly check yourself and be like, is this how I want to show up in the world? And from nonviolent communication, there's this method of basically like don't allow other people to be the stimulus. Don't allow other people to be the cause, but recognize they can be the stimulus. And then you've got 4 ways that you can deal with it, really. The first one is you can blame yourself, which leads to feelings of guilt or shame. The second one is you can blame others, which leads to anger. The third one is you can sense your own feelings and needs, which allows you to access vulnerability and share vulnerability with people. And then the fourth one is sense other people's feelings and needs, not your own. And then that allows you to access curiosity. And the way that I like to, for me personally, the way I want to live my life is I always want to do number 4. I want to sense other people's feelings and needs, and then I always want to follow up with whatever they say with a question. So if they come to me and they're like, Callum, you're such an arrogant piece of shit, then you would follow up with, something along the lines of, is my behavior making you feel angry today? Right? Like it's a question that comes back to their like dig at you. And when you follow up with a question, it immediately changes the scope of the conversation, because most people come back and they're like prodding you and, and saying, what the fuck, why'd you call me that? Blah, blah, blah. When in reality, it's not. And my second biggest takeaway, I would say, is regarding anger, for example. Realizing that we're never angry because of what others say or do. The cause of anger lies in our own thinking, in our thoughts and of blame and judgment on other people, and realizing that when someone is angry or when someone expresses anger towards us, it's almost our responsibility, like it's our need to hear the other person's pain.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is a difficult one for me, because to quote from the book, let's say directly, I don't want to paraphrase here. It says, Violence comes from the belief that other people cause pain and therefore deserve punishment. When we become aware of our needs, anger gives way to life-serving feelings. And it says, instead of saying to someone, I am angry because you did this, it's like, I am angry because I am needing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I am angry with you because I am needing more attention from you, or I am needing more love, or whatever, you know. Yeah, and so they would be my biggest two takeaways for sure.
That's really powerful. Thanks for sharing it. And I know that next to journaling, you are also a big note taker. Like coming back to the first point,
100%. Yeah.
and I'm embracing it more and more too. Like building my own knowledge base, putting together 80/20 summaries of books about blog posts. But mostly, I'm going away from blog posts more to wisdom of more accomplished people that they
Yeah.
share on podcast or in their books.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they share those thoughts on their blogs too, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they are not refined. So I'm rather taking it from the book, where they work really hard on, and then I dance it down for myself. So note taking for studying and remembering is a big one. When you spoke about the 4 steps, you know what I've just realized? It's almost identical to my entrepreneurial growth or entrepreneurial journey. Meaning, at the first stage where I didn't start, I blamed myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt guilt and shame for not being there or for not being good enough, you know. And as soon as I started, I blamed others.
Yeah.
Customers don't buy it. My parents didn't bring me up in a way that I could like prosper as an entrepreneur. And then at some point I was like, oh, this is victim mentality. This is like a fixed mindset, a loser strategy. That's not what I want. Like, what's helpful? Oh, first access your own feelings. Where does this come from, those limiting beliefs? Right? And then I was more aware of like, oh, what's internally going on? Where does this anger, this impatience of not being there come from? And how can I deal with it? That I know everything takes time. And how can I use my willpower, creativity to then go where I want to go? And I think I'm just tapping into the 4th step, just about
Sure.
to go into the 4th step. As you know, like as I'm doing more coaching, I'm accessing more people, asking questions, really trying to understand where they are coming from. And I think this is the crucial skill for any entrepreneur or marketer. As you know, it's like understanding your customers' needs and wishes, and then understanding those and their problems, and then finding solutions to
Sure.
solve them, right? And I think I'm just at the borderline of understanding this concept, how important this is. Do you have anything to add to it?
No. I mean, I think that's really useful. It's a nice realization. You could even apply that 4-stage strategy to yourself. And then, would you like me to repeat it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, stage 1 is blaming yourself, which leads to feelings of guilt and shame. Stage 1 is. Stage 2 is blaming others, which can lead to anger because it's outwardly putting.
And that's what I meant, Callum. I think I went through those stages, which are like communication, or this was part in the book of like about communication. But I think I personally went through those stages while becoming an entrepreneur. You know, first being a entrepreneur, not starting, but then blaming myself, blaming others, tapping into my emotions. And now I'm about to tap into other people's emotions to truly understand their desires, their needs, because I know as an entrepreneur, it's not about me. The world doesn't give a damn about Danny Holtschke, what his wishes is when it comes to me starting a business. So that's what I meant with me moving through the stages to develop businesses.
Got you. Yeah.
Is there, in terms of, like you said, you are using this time more effectively to prepare for your next job. Was there anything coming up when it comes to your next challenge? Anything surprising? Anything that you learned about the watch business that you're going to build? What did you learn around e-commerce in general?
Wow. I mean, that's a broad question, you know, because I've been studying a lot with branding and with marketing, and you know, one of my favorite things to do is just to ask people whether they're a homeless person or an entrepreneur, what their opinion of my product is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I don't even really care about what they say. It's just the words that they use.
Mm-hmm.
I literally take the words that they use and then I use those words to write my own copy.
Okay.
And that means that the copy is so much more effective because it means that I'm directly using the words that my target market would use.
Yeah.
Um, and so
So
I
I think
think,
this is really powerful. And how can you teach me and the audience? I think you're really gifted in it and copywriting, and I think this is something you do really well. So you wouldn't even approach your ideal customer. You just approach any person and tell him about how would you do this? Can you run us through it?
yeah, I mean, that was an exaggeration, I think. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go to a homeless person. My point was that I will always speak to people that I feel are a good fit
Okay.
for my product, for my target demographic, and and then I'll try and get different people's takes on a product. An example would be I'm releasing a men's watch. I'm asking women, what do they think about this? What do they think about this? What do they think about this color band? Is this feminine? Is this masculine? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the steps that I usually take is step one would be to just see them at a coffee shop or a dinner or whatever and just say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You know, and not take anything they say. Like, for example, in English, there's an expression you say, take everything they say with a pinch of salt,
Yeah.
which means, you know, like, don't really take anything seriously that they say, but listen, and the actual sentences and the way they put them together are really important, you know, because if you get someone that, for example, looks at a watch and says, wow, that watch looks really sharp. That watch looks really sharp and fresh, right? You've immediately got sharp and fresh. I store them little words in my mind dictionary, and then I have them, maybe I'll write them down on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll know people in this type of culture use these words, and then I'll put that into my copywriting.
Yeah. And you would even approach women, I guess, to see how they relate to those products because they might be the buyers, right? Who then give the watch to the men. Or would you just do this for market research, how to use those words? Or like, what's the reasoning if it's a men's watch talking to women?
The reasoning, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Sometimes women will often buy men gifts, right, like watches and stuff, but I think that most of the time um, the man will have already seen the watch, you know, and it will have suggested to the woman that he likes his watch, and the woman will surprise him with it, maybe. That was the way that I was brought up. I mean, maybe I'm guessing people, I don't know, based on your experience, do people just buy you things you didn't ask for, and you were just like, it was just luck that you liked it or not?
No, there's some kind of like communication involved before, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
in a store or Sunday afternoon, it's gray outside. You surf your way through the web or Amazon, like, oh, this looks interesting.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
maybe another example in my past relationship would have been you search something on the web and then you know the ads follow you, right? And then the other person's like,
Uh,
have you been searching watches? Or one time she was even like just looking at the ads and getting it for me. And I was like, I was surprised. And later I asked her, like, how did you do this? And she was like, oh, the ads were all over the place. You must have
no
been
way.
searching for it. So it was easy for me. I like, oh, easy, but really smart, you know?
Wow, that's genius, man.
Yeah.
Only a German girl would do that.
But yeah, I agree. There's some kind of communication or um, like intangible exchange of desire, however you're going to put it,
Mm,
involved.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I know it's a big question. What did you learn about branding? I know you taught me one or two lessons. Maybe you can share
Mm.
one of the biggest lessons you recently learned about branding because I know you are all about building a watch business from a branding perspective because you know
Yeah,
in the end it won't be the product in itself but the brand, the appeal, the
right,
feeling
right,
you'll create
right.
around it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been studying Apple closely, and I've been lucky enough to expose to a guy called Clotaire Raphael. He's a genius. How do you say, like, not freelancer, like contractor? He's a contractor for Boeing, for Apple, for Airbus, for all the world's big brands like Nestle and stuff like that. And he works with them closely. And, you know, one of the biggest takeaways I learned from him was you need to listen to the customer, but also realize that the customer oftentimes they don't know what they want, because the world right now is entering this like level of complexity where people are so overwhelmed with technology and so overwhelmed with decisions that it's called the black box theory, meaning that people more and more and more are looking, as complexity increases, you could say the simplicity of people's thinking wants to also increase, which is like, you're not going to be able to go to, you know, a scientist, like the ordinary person off the street, and say they're not going to know about, you know, molecular physics.
Yeah.
They're not going to understand, you know, nutritional science or anything like that. Like, it's too complicated, right? And so what they do is they use experts in that field to gain references from. The problem is that when someone then has, let's say Tim Ferriss, for example, right? He's a genius marketer and businessman, right? So anytime he put out business advice, I would always listen to it. But when Tim Ferriss brings out health advice, that then becomes an issue for me, because it's a heuristic in the human brain that whenever someone has influence in one area of life, we will automatically assume they have influence in another area, because we don't want to go to the complexity of researching it ourselves or finding someone else who does have that required knowledge. So we just associate one level of knowledge with another level of knowledge in the same person, if we regard that person of influence. And Tim Ferriss is a perfect example, right? Because he's a great marketer and sale, you know, and he wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. We now associate the 4-hour body. We associate the 4-hour, you know, whatever it is. And we go across all his different areas of life, and we say, well, this is how you date women because Tim Ferriss said. This is how you cook food because Tim Ferriss said. This is how you should work out because Tim Ferriss said, right? And what this guy, Claudette Raphael, was saying is, as a brand, you must take advantage of this. And the example that he used was on Boeing, when he was working on Boeing. Boeing, you know, biggest competitor is Airbus, right? Yeah. And Airbus released the A380, the huge big A380, right? And Claudette was working with Boeing, and he was like, okay, how can we crush Airbus, right? And he was surveying people who took flights regularly, and he said to these people, what is it that you really want on a flight? What is it you really want on a plane, right? And all these people were saying, we want more leg room, we want more entertainment, we want comfier seats, we want, you know, better air hostesses, etc., etc. But what they really wanted was no airport. That's what they really wanted, no airport.
So no stopover somewhere at a bigger hub just to get into a bigger plane. And yeah.
Exactly, right. And then what happened was Boeing, on the back of that research, released the Dreamliner, which was a small, relative compared to Airbus A380, it was a smaller version. It could dock at most airports around the world, and it could fly non-stop to many, many different locations. Whereas the Airbus is so big, it can only fly into main airports like London, like Amsterdam, Berlin, right? Yeah. So you have to take an extra flight to get on that plane. Yeah. And based off of what he told me and my understanding of it is that they made the Dreamliner smaller, right? And they went against what everybody said, they made it smaller, like less entertainment, blah 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 blah, right? But they crushed Airbus because what people really wanted was no airport.
Yeah. And what it comes to is what you told me and what I read before is like more fuel efficient too, right? Smaller machines, better technology, so they spend less fuel, which brings down the cost. And we both know the airplane industry, they have huge, like small profit margins and huge problems when it comes to making money. So this was another thing. And I recently flew in one of the Dreamliners from Oslo to Oakland, California, and it was smooth, man. It was nice, the air quality was much better. The cabin pressure wasn't as like, I didn't
Intense.
feel it was really an interesting feeling next to a small plane just going there. So they made something really remarkable. And what I learned the other day was in a podcast with on the I think it was School of Greatness podcast where he interviewed Jay Abraham, and he got asked,
Genius.
yeah, a genius, right? And then in the beginning he got asked, what are mistakes entrepreneurs do today? And I could see myself there, and I shared them with you, and then I want to share them again with the audience here, and please comment on it what your take is. So the first one is too tactical, not strategic enough. The second one would be don't understand the market at a deep empathetic level. So this is going back what you said in the fourth step. It's not about your feelings and emotions, but about the other people out there, your customers. Then the third step would be make it really hard for people to make business with you. And the fourth step is that most entrepreneurs with their businesses don't use the biggest leverage of trust. And I ask you, what is it, right? And you were like, I don't know. And it's referrals and word of mouth. Any comments?
I remember you sharing this with me at the lake. I 100% agree. 100% agree. It's just easier said than done, because one of my other biggest things in just in business overall is just to pick one thing, because we've been going back and forth with this Instagram thing and realizing like, why are all our competitors crushing it on Instagram and we're not? But we're crushing paid ads and And what we've realized is that like the reason they're crushing Instagram is because they just did one thing. They just focused on one thing, whereas we've done many different things and we've outsourced it to Filipinos and blah, 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 and they've not done it effectively, right? And so we're in the decision now of saying, okay, are we going to go all in on Instagram? Is that the future? Is that what we're going to do? Is that going to give us the ROI? And then go from there and just decide what the one thing is and pick it. And I think that's strategy.
It's true. And for me, instead of, and that's what Ramit Sethi taught me, instead of using random tactics, you come up with a strategy. And as you said, like before defining and committing to a strategy, you want to study the market leaders, right? And most of us assume, they do Instagram and they do this. But if you go back to the earlier days of the business, they mostly focused on one channel and executed really well. And they executed, and not Filipinos. It's another thing I misunderstood for a long time. It's like a tennis player who wants to get better wouldn't hire another player to pick up whatever, like he would do the groundwork in the beginning. Of course we would say so, right? Of course a musician and painter, they all would do the groundwork, maybe even for years. And Callum, as you know, I've been so impatient with my entrepreneurial journey that I wanted to have everything so quickly. And I wasn't willing to put in the hard work of showing up every day, learning more about marketing, being more strategic and copying, for example, what Tim Ferriss does well, what Louis House does well, or other Pat Flynn do well. And then don't apply everything, but just see where I want to go from there, right? Major lesson for me, for sure.
Sure.
What's and then in closing this up, what's the outlook for the next 4 to 6 weeks? I know there's Christmas coming for you. You're going back home to your family, settling. What are a few things you are looking forward to do? What are you afraid of or concerned about?
I'm looking forward to seeing my family. That's going to be really, really huge for me. Is like seeing my mom and seeing my family and getting back around that environment. With the dog and the home and that feels really, really right to be back there. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to getting an office and having my own gym and getting back into this like startup mentality, you know. I'd say that's the biggest two things I'm looking forward to, is like really investing in something for the long run with someone I feel like I could do that with, and then also my family for sure.
Nice. And I know that another thing we're going to talk about next time when we come on the show, and it's actually just 2 more seconds left. It's you are a little concerned about what kind of environment you are able to set up for yourself, not just when it comes to gym, but with the people you hang out with, right? How can you have this whole pack of inspiring people around you? And I'm really curious to see how you manage this kind of concern that you have right now, if it will become a reality because you already set your mind on it, or how you can get out of it and find interesting people in your environment, similar to the people you met here in Asia or Macau, wherever you spend time.
I mean, thanks for pointing that out, man, because I think that was my own shit, and you know, particularly since I've read nonviolent communication, it's like I've realized that I was just putting labels on people unnecessarily, and that the reason I was so affected by my environment is because I was mentally weak. Yeah. Simple as that. Don't get me wrong, your environment is very, very important, but I couldn't have a better environment than just being with Steph every single day and having like 1 or 2 of the people in my life. Because, you know, I'm realizing in Chiang Mai, it's like, again, everyone's on different levels and stuff, but even in Chiang Mai, what am I looking for with a wolf pack? I'm like, oh, I'm in Chiang Mai because the wolf pack, but like everyone here is just great friends. They're not necessarily winning in business. You know what I mean? They're just like cool people just to hang around with. Yeah. Right. And so no one really in Chiang Mai has great business success today. Let's be honest. And so there's many different areas of life, I think, that you can be a winner. And so I think that really what I want to look for is positive people that are optimistic, people that are fun, people that I can resonate with. Yeah.
I love it. And as you know, we're always going to be connected and just a little phone call away, even though it might be Berlin, London.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for even though you're a little tired and smashed, sharing your lessons. I really enjoyed it, and maybe in the future we can use this as an experiment. As you know, we always talked about it, like maybe we do this as a what did we learn session, and we teach each other, the both of us, and that's a nice way for us to stay in touch, and looking further, let's say February or March, and maybe other people will find value out of it. And just bring it up there that people can comment on. So if they liked what we did here, like sharing each other's lessons learned and wisdom, how we apply it, not just repeating book knowledge, but how we really apply it to our life and what kind of realizations we have, please comment and leave a rating on iTunes. It will help us to further navigate what you want, what we are good at, and then we put more of this stuff out there. And thanks for being on the show. And the last comment, it's yours, my friend.
Yeah, man. I mean, do what you say you're going to do. Simple as that. You know, that's the message I would leave, is like the thing I want to leave for my next check-in that I keep myself accountable is like the reason I was out, last night I was completely drunk. I barely got any sleep, but that wasn't a planned event, right? But this was a planned event. And so I said I was going to be here, so I'm going to fucking be here, right? And this is why, I'm even reminding Felipe about this. It's like, if you say you're going to do something, do it, right? Don't be in this fucking, because I know personally people lose my respect when they say they're going to do something repeatedly and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And I want to hold myself to that standard. And for the next call, that's going to be important. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this lesson. It sounds true to me, and it resonates strongly with me. And thanks for sharing it. And I'm looking forward to see you in Chiang Mai again before you leave.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome. I'll see you soon.
Thanks.
StartupGeist Podcast. Entrepreneurs are not born. We are self-made. please leave an honest rating on iTunes or leave a comment on startupgeist.com/podcast. Thank you for listening.